Hey everybody, it's me, Steve Schnee, the CD Junkie. On this episode of CD Junkie, I'm going to be going through the studio catalog of Neil Diamond. I've been a huge Neil Diamond fan. That's just because I was raised on Neil Diamond. My mom was a big fan. My brother and my sisters and I would always hear Neil Diamond. So I became a fan. And of course, I continued buying the albums long after my siblings did. But I'm going to go through the catalog, but there's so much here that I have to go through. I'm not going to include any of the holiday albums, any of the Christmas albums, and I'm not really going to include too many of the compilations. I will talk about a few of them, but I will only talk about them briefly, and I will talk about the actual albums briefly. Now let's go all the way back to 1966 when he released his debut album called The Feel of Neil Diamond. Of course, the album contains Solitary Man, Cherry Cherry, Love to Love, lots of great tracks. Now this is a CD here that contains that album plus his 1967 album called Just For You. And Just For You contained Girl, You'll Be a Woman Soon, Red, Red Wine, Shiloh, Long Way Home, Thank the Lord for the Nighttime. Now, what they did is when that album came out, they took a couple songs off the debut album and put them on the second album. So this CD actually removes those songs from the second album. So you get the entirety of both albums on one CD. Now, this period here is what he's best remembered for by the rock crowd, per se. And it has been represented on several compilations, including classics. And these are stereo. I think some of them might actually even be remixes, but that showcased stereo versions. And then there was the Bang Years, which this features mono versions. And I believe this compilation includes one more track than this. And I think it's Kentucky Woman. So this is what you need to get if you love Neil Diamond's Bang Records years. Now then, after Bang Records, he signed with Uni Records. The first album he released on Uni Records was Velvet Gloves and Spit. And this is the original cover. Now, this album sounded like some of the tracks were left over from the Bang Years because they have that feel, but then they also went into the more mature sound. Some of my favorite songs on this album would be like Sunday Sun and Honey Drippin' Times, Brooklyn Roads. That's actually fantastic. Now, the rest of his Uni catalog I do not have on individual CD, but I'm going to tell you about them anyway because they are featured in this 3 CD set that everybody should own. This contains everything from his Uni years apart from his live albums. There are a few live songs on here, but this is all the studio recordings. It is called Play Me. Absolutely incredible collection. This does include, it starts with Velvet Gloves and Spit. Here, I'm going to show you the back there. Velvet Gloves and Spit was 1968. And then after that was 1969, Brother Love's Traveling Salvation Show. And that has Juliet and The Grass Won't Pay No Mind, If I Never Knew Your Name, and of course, Sweet Caroline, which is absolutely fantastic. This also contains the album Touching Me, Touching You, which has, oh my gosh, Holly Holy, Singer Sings a Song. There's a lot of covers on that album. But then he released a live album called Gold, and that has a song on there called Lordy, which isn't released on anything else. It is included on here. So this is recorded at the Troubadour. That came out in 1970. Now, also in 1970, you can take a look at the tracks here, he came out with the Taproot Manuscript album, and that was Cracklin' Rosie, Free Life, Done Too Soon, Cold Water Morning, great songs. Now, side 2 of it was the African Trilogy of Folk Ballet, which was, I'm sorry, it sounds like it was pot influenced. It's just so amazingly weird, but awesome. And all the songs are included on this. 1971, out comes the album Stones. And Stones features, of course, the song Stones, I Am, I Said, and of course, one of his oddly named songs, Crunchy Granola Sweet. I mean, I love him during this period because he was doing those serious songs, but then he was coming out with these songs. It's just like, what the, where did that come from? In 1972, he put out the album Moods, which contains the title track to this and probably my favorite Neil Diamond song called Play Me. But it also features Song Sung Blue, Walk on Water, Captain Sunshine, and of course, 2 more oddly named songs, Gitchy Goomy and Porcupine Pie. Of course, I love Neil Diamond, so I was just absorbing this stuff as a kid. Now, that was it with his studio releases on Uni. His final album for the label was, of course, Hot August Night. You know, I normally don't talk about live albums, but this is a classic live album that I grew up with, and that's Hot August Night. I still have no idea what the heck he's doing on that album cover. and playing the invisible bagpipes, I don't know, but it's still a classic live album. He did release other Hot August Night, Hot August Night 2, 3, Love at the Greek, things like that. I never really cared too much for those. This one I did. See, Neil Diamond is a great live performer, I would assume, in person. But when you're listening to an album and you're listening to like Sweet Caroline, you want to hear Neil Diamond go, "Where it began," like that. You want to hear it like it was on record, not "Where it began." And that's kind of what turned me off of listening to Neil Diamond live albums. Now let's move into 1973, Jonathan Livingston Seagull, the soundtrack. And this features the song B. This features both instrumental and vocal tracks. The recordings on this album were arranged and sound very much like his Uni recordings. This is really before he went in with that big, bold production that he would follow with his later Sony releases. But yeah, this is another fine album, 1973. 1974, out comes the album Serenade. This has one of my favorite Neil Diamond songs called Longfellow Serenade. It also has If You Know What I Mean. This is when he was getting into the bigger production. And of course, this was a hit album. He was moving away from the Uni sound and sort of embracing bigger, bolder production. In 1976, he released the album Beautiful Noise, produced by Robbie Robertson from the band. This is a very fine album indeed. This includes tracks such as If You Know What I Mean, Lady-O, Beautiful Noise, Street Life. It's a great record. It's dense production, and it didn't rock him out, and it didn't take him to the sound of the band. It was sort of somewhere between what he was going to become and what he had been in terms of production-wise. Still a fine collection of songs. And this tends to be a favorite amongst favorites for Neil Diamond fans. In 1977, I'm Glad You're Here With Me Tonight comes out, and this features Desiree, As If, Once in a While, the original version, solo version of You Don't Bring Me Flowers, and his version of God Only Knows. This is really the version that I remember. It introduced me to the song. I'd probably heard the Beach Boys version, and it never really clicked. I heard this, and then, of course, I heard the Beach Boys version, which I ended up loving more, but I still really like his very unique Neil Diamond arrangement. In 1978, You Don't Bring Me Flowers comes out. Now, I don't think that they planned on this album to be called You Don't Bring Me Flowers, but somebody at a radio station had taken his solo version and Barbra Streisand's solo version, spliced them together, and then created a duet. It became so popular that they went into the studio and actually recorded a duet version of the song, and it just became a huge monster hit, and they added it to this album. But this album is probably also known for Forever in Blue Jeans, and that's just a great, great, great song. Somebody who's very near and dear to my heart once told me that they thought Forever in Blue Jeans was called Reverend Blue Jeans, which that's what sticks in my mind. 1979, September Morn. That, just the title track alone, is amazing. He also does a version of The Sun Ain't Gonna Shine Anymore on this, and he does kind of a world music version of I'm a Believer. And of course, everybody knows in 1980, The Jazz Singer. Of course, the movie got panned by the critics, but us Neil Diamond fans, we love it. And of course, this has all the greats such as America, Hello Again, Love on the Rocks, and so many more. Great album by Neil Diamond. 1981, On the Way to the Sky, and this features Yesterday's Songs, which was the big hit, Right By You, and of course title track On the Way to the Sky. I really like this album, and I just can't stand the fact that this portion of his career is really overlooked and written off by rock fans per se, but still lots of great material. He was recording great albums. I think a lot of the times maybe the label was saying, put another ballad on there, get David Foster to produce this, or stuff like that. But anyway, then Heartlight, of course, the song inspired by the movie E.T. Great, great, great title track. This came out in 1982. Another very fine album by Neil Diamond. Now, Primitive, I really like the album Primitive a lot. He was originally, the whole idea of this was get back to just him and his band, him writing all the songs. But then again, it turned into another, the label forcing him to change things. But this has some great songs in it. The title track is great. Fire on the Tracks. And also the original version of You Make It Feel Like Christmas is on this. He later re-recorded that for his first Christmas album. I prefer this version better. Headed for the Future came out in 1986, and this is his I guess you could, more synthesizers were coming in than usual, like the song Headed for the Future. And there's some other great tracks on this album. Story of My Life is beautiful. It's absolutely wonderful. And Stevie Wonder makes an appearance on this album. And this is kind of, I'd say, where a lot of people do think the schlock really started setting in. I don't think so, but I can understand why some people would feel that way. For me, I enjoy every aspect of his career, which doesn't make me popular at parties. Anyway, out in 1988 came The Best Years of Our Lives. This has a lot of songs that have that sort of John Cougar Mellencamp, heartland rock type sound, mixed in with his ballads and such. But great songs in this. This Time, Baby Can I Hold You, and Everything's Gonna Be Fine, which kind of harkens back to Cherry Cherry type chord changes. Lovescape came out in 1991. I think this is a good album, but unfortunately there's no highlights that I can pull off and tell you, oh, this is a great song, this is a great song. I just think overall it's a fine album, it's a good album. But if you want to start your Neil Diamond collection, save this for maybe 10 or 20 albums in. Nothing to be ashamed of, just not one of my favorites. Speaking of an okay Neil Diamond album, there is Up on the Roof, Songs from the Brill Building, where he essentially does cover versions. If you want to hear Neil Diamond doing cover versions, that's fine. I prefer albums that are chiefly written or co-written by Neil Diamond, or at least songs that were written for Neil Diamond albums, such as Tennessee Moon. This was his quasi-country album, and while it's not country the way you think of it, it doesn't have a twang to it, there is more like pedal steel in there and stuff, and there's some good songs in here. I don't think that the updated version of Kentucky Woman is that great. It's better than that version of I'm a Believer from the earlier album, but it is a fine collection of songs, and there's some duets on there, and again, I think it's an overlooked album in his catalog. And then comes the 2 CD, the movie album, As Time Goes By, came out in 1998. In 2001, he came out with 3-chord opera, which was mostly written by him, or maybe chiefly written by him. Again, sort of like Lovescape. It's a very fine album, a lot of good songs, no standouts, and definitely one that you should check out when you're out in the wild, but it's not at the top of my list. But then in 2005, he gets together with Rick Rubin, and Rick Rubin did the same thing with him as he did with Johnny Cash. He took everything back down to basics and presented Neil Diamond really kind of raw and upfront, acoustic, his voice very personal, and that's what 12 Songs is. Now, there's a couple of versions of this. This is the 2 CD version, which has some bonus material on it, and it's really just a heartfelt album. It's really wonderful. It's Neil Diamond just stripped to the core, and it's a fantastic collection of songs. In fact, the highlight of this album is called Hell Yeah, and hell yeah, I did cuss. He followed that up in 2008 with another Rick Rubin produced album, another fine collection of songs, and this is called Home Before Dark, and this is the expanded version with bonus material. Another great collection of songs, heartfelt, stripped to the core, honest, pure, and warm and intimate production. Really fantastic. And you'd think that he'd follow that up with more Rick Rubin produced albums. No, he ditched the whole Rick Rubin idea, and he followed those 2 albums up with Cherry Cherry Christmas. The guy needs a new manager. Anyway, then comes the album Dreams, which is 2010. Now, the good thing about those Rick Rubin albums is it just tossed aside all the overproduction of those Neil Diamond albums in the late 80s and through the 90s. This is him doing cover versions, and they're all stripped down acoustic. Rick Rubin did not produce this, but it has the same feel as the Rick Rubin albums. And there you can see he's covering some of his favorite songs, and you'll see some Beatles in there and Eagles and lots of fine stuff. This is a really good album. Like I said, not produced by Rick Rubin, but continuing that shift in sound. 2014, he followed that up with Melody Road, yet another fine collection of songs. It's a little bit more produced than the Rick Rubin albums and Dreams, but it still is at its core an acoustic album. It does have some a little bit of country feel, a little bit of Americana feel. There's a great collection of songs on this, and it definitely needs to be checked out, like Something Blue and Songa and Jimmy, which is really a simplistic song in many ways, but it's also very epic and really powerful. And then there's Melody Road, of course, the title track. really, really great collection of songs. And then finally, his last album before he retired was Classic Diamonds, and this is him performing with the London Symphony Orchestra. This isn't like some of those other ones where they've taken existing recordings and just, pulled down the instruments and added the symphony orchestra over it. This is him actually performing new versions of the songs. They're not definitive versions, but he sounds very comfortable and very relaxed during his performances. This is not embarrassing. It's really a fine collection of songs. They don't replace the originals, but it is nice to just put on in the background and just hear these new absolutely wonderful versions of Neil Diamond classics. Now, just let me mention a couple compilations. There's like that In My Lifetime box set, and I own that. That's up on the shelf. There's also things like the Essential Neil Diamond 2 CD set. There's, the 50 Diamonds compilation. I haven't been buying all those because I have all the original tracks, but my favorite Neil Diamond compilation of all, and this took me a long time to track down on CD, and that's called And the Singer Sings His Song. This is a collection of tracks from the Uni years, and they're songs that he wrote. They're not necessarily big hits, but they're self-penned songs, and it's a great collection. And I used to listen to a lot when I was younger, when I was in my early teens. I'd put the headphones on, and this album would just take me away. I knew back then it was a compilation, but it still really had a powerful impact on me, as did much of this material that I've just shown you. But I want to show you one more thing. My pal Nick Pantasy sent me something that just absolutely blew my mind. He had it in his collection. He knew I was a fan. And it's not a CD, but it is a vinyl LP pressing of Jazz Singer, autographed by Neil Diamond. And I can never thank him enough. It actually hangs on the wall just above this big country clock. A big country clock. Who has a big country clock? Anyway, that's it for this video. I appreciate you hanging out as I talked about Neil Diamond. Remember to like, comment, share, subscribe, to ring that bell for future notifications. And until the next time, remember me. I'm Steve Schnee, the CD Junkie.